Hi, everybody. This is Karen Brown from Wise Woman Leading, and I have my dear friend and colleague, Nicole Moen from gatheringroots.ca. I hope I got that right.
You did. Thank you, Karen. Hello, everybody.
Hi. And Nicole and I asked Nicole actually to come on and just to have a conversation with me about an offering that is coming up soon. It's called Awaken the Wise Woman. And I just thought Nicole and I could have a chat about it. And as we go through, this may be something that you're interested in, and maybe some of the questions that you would have is what we'll discuss. So we'll just kind of dive in. So what
So,
would you like to know?
well, I mean, obviously, what are you offering? What's the name of it? What's the sort of trajectory in terms of
Yeah.
what you'll be leading people through?
Yes. So it's a 13-week program, and I did choose the number specifically. And the way I'm kind of thinking about it, it's something I've been wanting to offer for a really long time. It's actually something that I have offered for quite some time with women individually, but not as a small group program. So this is a program for women in the second half of life who I specifically work with and love to work with, who are on this initiatory journey to become the archetypal wise woman.
Mhm.
And so this is about leaning into that mythology that we might remember from our school years. Um, and that's becoming more popular again. It's that ancient story, about the powerful goddess. It's the pre-patriarchal story. And I totally believe, and I know you do, Nicole, that this is returning and that it's never been more needed. And so if we are that goddess, and I believe we are, and I believe that this, and it's the reason I call my all of my offerings, my business has the word wise women in it. I believe that women in the second half of life are taking this initiatory journey to become this archetype archetypal figure, the goddess, the wise woman, could also be called the crone. Sometimes we call it the queen. And that this has never been more important, and that actually that super old story can help us as women in the second half of life write our new story.
Mhm.
So, there's this kind of the patriarchal story is that a woman in the second half of life, it's a slow decline into, I can't, I won't
Completely.
use the language that I was thinking of, but a certain kind of show starts with SH and ends in IT of, decline, all the hormonal imbalances and all the things that creates. But then there's also this thing about, invisibility and relevance and all of that. And I think a lot of women have subconsciously taken that on board.
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's all of these transitions that happen, right? Divorce or the death of a parent, caregiving a parent, and maybe a child, and being in that sandwich
Mhm.
generation, particularly as women, in the last few decades, we've had children later. I'm one of those. And maybe there's a career transition that's happening. All kinds of things that all seem to kind of happen around this time. It's a lot, right? It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot in our current society
Yes.
because there's layers of expectation on our time outside of what we're actually built to be doing. Right.
Yes.
And so that I think is the piece that gets so challenging when you talked about this being the old story, the old archetype, but it's ancient, but it's also new and emerging again.
Yes.
I mean,
Exactly.
most indigenous cultures, that's a big statement. I don't, could be wrong there, but the indigenous cultures that I'm familiar with are often matrilineal in how they pass along um, the information. The women were the ones who were meant to be running the show.
Yes.
They're the ones connected with the earth, with birthing and with the death, and the monthly cycle connected with the moon and the birthing of the moon, which I'm learning a lot about from you, and how to stay in tune with that cycle. These
Yeah.
natural rhythms that women have intrinsic in their bodies, and how to move with those rhythms. These are some of the things that I'm learning more and more from you as an individual, and as someone who's been part of many of your groups over the years. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's perfect because that's really, for me, I think the central piece of this program. So, I mean, top level, high level, and in kind of, everyday modern language, it's going to be a journey to help women let go of what's not serving them, everything from emotions, beliefs, that stuff we've just been talking about, the old story, and all of the things that are taking up space in our minds, our bodies, our spirits,
Mm.
that can impact our physical health and well-being, especially at this time of life. Contribute to some of those things that are happening, that are going on in the body, like cortisol. If you think about cortisol, that's from stress. So if we're worried about all the things and we can't re-ground ourselves and come into a place of stillness, if we can't understand the bigger picture of our lives, then very hard to create a life of vitality and meaning, and make some of the changes that we really want to make, or complete with the changes that are happening now and navigate them with more ease. So it's about letting go, coming into kind of a place of silence and stillness, and learning to trust our intuition, listening in, getting more rooted, being able to stay centered and grounded no matter what's swirling around us, which is, of course, easier said than done and an ongoing journey.
There's a lot swirling. And one of the things I'm really struck with, in both what you're saying and my experience with you, is the practicality of this. Like,
Mm,
archetypal woman, elder woman crone, that has sort of in a modern culture, modern vocabulary, in sort of an out there kind of, it can have a bit of an out there kind of
mm,
perspective, is not an in here. Um,
right.
and my experience of it is that it is in here, and it changes when I'm doing what you're talking about, and navigating that over quite a long number of years now. Um, it changes how I can show up and be, in a modern sense, the things that are valued. I can be more productive in that space. You know,
Yeah.
I'm better at connecting. My relationships are richer and deeper and more authentic. Um, I'm sure you can think of some other practical examples that aren't coming to my own mind in the moment, because um, so there's layers to the
Mm, mhm.
value of this work.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, That's bringing to mind, I guess, what I was thinking about. We release those things, what I was mentioning. That's in the archetypal language. So in the
Yeah.
modern day, we say, well, we're releasing things, we're making space, whatever terminology you want to,
Yeah.
letting go of our, things we don't need that no longer serve us. In the archetypal language, that's the dying to the old,
Right.
which women know in their bodies. uh, when they're younger, they know it as menstruation, right? That is the process of dying to the old. The
Yeah.
period is the shedding and the
Mm.
letting go. And the ancients knew that this was a very, very powerful time to die to the old. And then um, the second piece of that is that I had mentioned just now about the listening in, creating, so we create space, then we can hear. So you
Mhm.
don't rush into doing, because that's coming then from the mind. So we go into the stillness to hear. So we're listening to something that maybe we haven't been listening to for a long time, or we can deepen in if we're somebody who's already intuitive. And so this is an opportunity to kind of walk between the worlds and to get comfortable in the unknown.
Mhm.
And then there's, so you've made space, you've listened in, and now you can actually start to hear what's wanted, what you truly desire, all of that. And then you can start to create and plan,
Mhm.
and bring in more of the left brain from that place.
It's
Um,
coming from an authentic
yes,
place and a connected place with spirit, with
yes,
whatever you want to call it, that is actually the foundation of, our truth and our way of showing up in the world.
yes. And archetypally speaking, what I just described is the dying,
Mhm.
the death, and the rebirth.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me in Chinese medicine, they refer to menopause as the second spring.
Right.
So that's exactly. And so I've actually designed this, which is really cool, if I do say so myself. I've created this so it's 13 weeks. And because I work with the lunar cycle, so I want to explain that. So
Mhm.
after menstruation, of course, you have menopause, you're no longer bleeding, but we can align ourselves to the 28 or 29 days of the moon. And the ancients called menstruation the moon time. So now we have the ability, as we always did, but in a different way, to align ourselves with the phases of the moon. And if that sounds woo-woo, it's actually, again, really practical. It gives us kind of a rhythmic way of living. So we start aligning ourselves instead of the patriarchal story, which is 24/7, go, 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 type A personality, climb the corporate ladder, keep going. At this stage of our life, a lot of women, it stops making sense. And
Mhm.
perhaps, it never did, right? But as we naturally, by our natures, begin to align to a different rhythm, and I'm not talking about decline and slowing down, although slowing down actually has a lot of merit. So, but
It's a,
but
it's a
instead of,
part of the process.
yes, instead of thinking of life like this or like this, which I think is what we've been told, what if it was more like this or more like this? So more like a spiral upwards, but with those kind of, you know,
Mhm.
troughs. And then, so it's again, dying to the old, being in stillness, coming up, and we can align ourselves in modern life to this cycle. And so I'm going to show in the way the course is designed, but also in the content, how we can do that.
Well,
So,
it occurs to me that we often think of those troughs as the bad part,
mhm,
the negative part,
exactly.
but not the necessary part.
Yes,
And not the part to really, well, all of the parts, but it's not that any part of the cycle is bad. These are natural rhythms. These are ways that humans are built to,
right.
to honor and move with in the natural world, outside of archetypal things. Even, there's this, again, there's layers to why this makes sense.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Exactly. So in the program, it's going to mirror kind of what I'm exploring with everyone. So,
13 moons in a year, not
yes,
12, like our count,
exactly.
but that's
Exactly.
13.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And that number 13 is like the divine feminine number for that exact reason. So I thought when I was designing, I'm like, oh, I see how we can do this. We'll do it as 13 weeks. So there's actually, and it's in threes, which is again the very feminine number. So we have uh the first month. So we're going to start in the beginning of February, and that first month we're going to meet for 3 weeks in a row, and that will be mirroring this idea of releasing,
Mhm.
which is what I call it, releasing. So the letting go, looking at what wants to go. And we'll also lay all of the foundations about the different wise women practices and so on that we'll be working with through the entire time. And I the point of this is that you continue working with this every month and it deepens and grows.
Right.
So I'll teach about the lunar cycle and how to work with it in that first month, and then we'll continue doing it. But it's about, I'll be emphasizing that release aspect for that first 3 weeks. Then, as we get to the dark moon, which is the time of the going inward, the time of the dying to the old, we take a break
Mhm.
and we actually gather in ceremony, as the ancients did in the red tent. And I will show, women how to make the most of that time. It's the fertile void. It's
Mm.
like you were
Mhm.
saying, it's not the bad place
Yeah.
in the dark. It's the fertile void. And we learn how to get comfortable in the mystery, in the not knowing, which
Mhm.
we don't know much about what's going on in the world right now. So this is great
Yeah.
practice,
Yeah.
so we become less stressed when things are going on around us. Then in the second month, again, we meet for 3 weeks, and then we have this dark moon resting, gathering,
Mhm.
honoring period. And so that second month, that second set is what I'm calling the rest portal doorway phase of the program. And so in that month, people will be working with what they've learned in the first month. Again, another lunar cycle, but this time we'll emphasize tools for becoming still, tools for rooting, starting to really dial up that intuition and discernment. Then we do it again. In the next 3 weeks, we have now the receiving. So now we're listening. Now we're starting to make a plan. We're bringing in our masculine kind of um, planning, strategic focus, um, because we have space. So like, what do you want to do with this aspect of your life and this one and this one? What are you hearing? And it might be different from what you thought going in you might want to create. You might hear something different because you've made that space. So
That
that's 12
think
weeks, right? So 9 plus 3 is 12. So plus 3 is
math.
12. Yes, it is. And then after that, we're going to do kind of a ceremony. We're going to reclaim who we are and who we're becoming as this archetypal wise woman. So that's the 13th
Mhm.
week. I've also timed this with in the northern hemisphere, the seasons, because that's another alignment, it's another cycle of life. And so we're actually going to be working on the receiving part as we cross that spring equinox, which is the perfect time. That's the true beginning of the new year. It's not really January. It's when we emerge, right? When that seed starts to sprout and come up through the earth. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Mhm.
So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Well, I love this, and several things come to mind that the when you're in that sort of slowing down, that stiller place, a liminal space might be another way some
Yeah.
people think about it. Um, the piece that really still surprises me, the surprise is the surprise. It's
Yes.
like you can be in that place, and what emerges is nothing you could have come up with your brain. And your brain might even like fight against it a little bit. I mean, I know mine does sometimes, it's like, what? That doesn't make sense. What? But when I do that and I listen to that, that's the bit that works. Um, so I love that that's a big part of the emphasis here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And starting in February really resonates with me. I know the people local to where I live on the west coast of Canada and southern tip of Vancouver Island, um, that the new year is in February here, according to the local Indigenous people.
Yeah.
So that is when when it makes sense to, you know, start something.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll be really leaning into kind of the vibe,
Mhm.
to use a modern term, of each of the seasons, although we're, technically not in the fall, but we're in that still place of, incubating something, and then we move into the emergence, and yeah.
Is it true that so people, women particularly, who are, in their crone years, in their older years, second half of life, elders on the planet, um, is it true that you're going to be doing some kind of a ceremony at the end? That's what you said, I
Yes,
think. Yeah.
yes,
Which
yes,
sort of which is becoming more and more known, done, practiced, um, to do initiatory ceremonies, I guess you could say,
yes.
at different phases in life, um, and including one's crone years. I did a crone ceremony myself, and that's why I'm wearing this here for this today,
Oh, wonderful.
because
Yeah.
this is the amulet that was part of that carries the gifts that were given to me in that ceremony, and it really changed things for me, that bit. And I'm excited about the fact that this work will lead into that kind of an initiatory peace ceremony for the women participating.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really cool, I
And
think.
ceremony, there's a connotation which may really resonate with some people, but not with others. That idea of, wearing a priestess robe and going out and, I don't know, dancing by the moon, under the moon. Well, I actually like that little secret. And I like to say I'm kind of bilingual. So I speak mainstream and I speak woo.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of a person who loves to bridge worlds. And that's what we're going to be doing anyway as we move through the
Well,
different layers of the world beyond what we just see.
and we have to, right?
Yeah.
We are living here in this world in all of its dysfunction and its disintegration and its I don't know, things that,
Yes.
that aren't
Yep.
working for us, aren't working for the world
Exactly. Yes.
in a
Yes.
natural thing. And
Yes.
so that's the thing, it's that middle space, right? Between the bridge
Yes.
between those, that's where we're meant to be working and living.
Yes.
Going.
Yes. Yes. And so wherever a woman is on that sort of, I don't know what to call it, it's not a spectrum, but a continuum, that's the right word, between, wow, these are kind of new concepts to me, and I'm all in, I do ceremony every day. There's a whole beautiful weaving, wondrous ground
Yeah.
here to
Yeah.
play with. And I think a woman who's over here and a woman who's over here will really benefit
Yeah.
from each other's perspective and exploration. So I'm really excited to see the beautiful women, that are going to gather. And it is limited. It's a small group program. I specifically wanted that, and it's a beta test of sorts as well, because I've not offered this program in this format before. And so it's a bit of a beta test. I want to see, is this the right length? Should it be longer, shorter, and get feedback from people and give what they need in the moment.
Yeah.
So it'll be I'll be very hands-on, and I may add things if people want extra things, as we go. It's going to be amazing, I think.
It sounds beautiful, and there's such richness in that diversity
Mm.
of participants, and how, people will be learning from you, but they'll also learn from each other.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I don't claim any kind of guruship. I mean, this is part of the whole thing. It's that, yes, I've been through, the menopausal journey, and I think about it and I'm going to say receive about it a lot. I've studied a lot of the aspects of it. Yes, so I can be a guide, a kind of guide, but ultimately it's about teaching the women, or showing for the women and hopefully modeling that we are our own wise women. That is the point, right? And to find that wisdom within one's self.
Mhm.
So it's not about me saying do this or do that. It's about you discerning, does this make sense to me? Does this feel good for me?
Yeah, and in what ways can I show up in that context in
Yeah.
my own
Yes.
world? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really beautiful. Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Did you want to share anything about like, well, you've shared the dates already, it's online, how people would go to a link that you'll probably connect with this
Yes. I exactly.
uh
Yes. Yep,
yeah.
I will put everything in the description box below the video. So it starts this cohort, I guess for lack of, it's not a good term, this gathering, this group of beautiful women will begin the week of February 3rd. I'm also making it because I have people that are in all different places. I'm going to make sure there's actually a survey when you register. So people might be worried about, well, I don't know if the times are going to work for me. So I will actually be creating the times of the meetings based on what works for the majority, if not
Oh,
all.
oh, that's
So
good. Yeah.
yeah, I just want to mention that, but it starts, that's why I can't give you a specific day, but it will start the week of February 3rd, and then it'll be determined as
Yeah.
we
The
close
group itself
registration.
signs up as interested will determine the timing and the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll go for 13 weeks, and our completion beautiful ceremony will be sometime early May.
Mm. May's great for something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Nicole, for chatting with me and helping me to you know, illuminate, that's the word, what this is, because it can be a little hard to
Tricky with some of this
describe.
stuff. I work in a similar, tangential sort of context, and it's when work is subtle
Mm,
and nuanced and rich and far-reaching, it's difficult to talk about sometimes because and mysterious too. There aren't necessarily words that can describe your experience of it. And so I think conversation is a really good way to start to, open up, the story of what's
yeah,
happening. Yeah.
yes. And that being in the mystery is
Mm.
what this is all about, really. It's like, and you'll feel a resonance or not. And
Yeah.
that's the invitation. It's not a get rich quick scheme or something that has, like that kind of, oh, you can, in the online business space, you hear, oh, 30 days to 100K, and that's sort of very specific.
Yeah.
Here's the problem and here's the solution. This is not that. It's very hard to say, okay, you're going to get this, this, and this. But I
It's
do,
journey. It's journey, not
yes.
the destination.
Yes, yes. And it's a deepening that will continue after, if you continue to work with the practices that we explore, it will deepen and enrich and give more meaning and depth to anything that you do potentially.
Mhm.
So thanks, Nicole.
Oh, thank you, Karen. I'm excited to stay tuned into how this is going.
And I look forward to welcoming all the beautiful women that are feeling called to this. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.